Hello YouTube, what's up? It is Jack and Tom 7, and in this video I'm going to be giving you guys a comparison of the iPad mini versus the Google Nexus 7. So Christmas is coming up, and I know a lot of people are debating on getting the iPad mini or the Nexus 7 or whatever. You know, that these are two really popular tablets, 7-inch tablets, due to their 7-inch form factor. So yeah, let's get into the video. First off, the display, the iPad mini has a 7.9-inch LED backlit display with a resolution of 1024 by 768 and has 163 pixels per inch. The Nexus 7 has a 7.0-inch LCD display, so it's LCD, not LED, and a resolution of 1280 by 800 and 216 pixels per inch. So the winner here is the Google Nexus 7 because it has more pixels per inch and higher screen resolution. But yeah, so both of these screens are not Retina displays, which is a downside, but still, these are fairly inexpensive tablets, and I don't think there's any 7-inch tablet out there that has a Retina display yet. Technical specifications, the iPad mini's CPU, the speed of it is 1 gigahertz, and it has a dual-core CPU, and it's called the Apple A5 chip. It's made by Apple. I know sometimes Apple gets their parts from Samsung. I know the screens for the iPhones, or at least they used to, but Apple makes the A5 chip. So the RAM, it has 512 megabytes of RAM, which is half of a gigabyte, and believe it or not, I believe that was the standard amount of RAM in 2006 or 2004 or 2006. That was the standard amount of RAM in a desktop computer. So we're going really, we have been what's the word, progressing very far and very fast with technology so far. We got so far in a decade, but we're not talking about this in this video. So the Nexus 7 CPU has a speed of 1.2 gigahertz, so it's 0.2 gigahertz faster than the iPad mini, so that's really not noticeable, but in benchmarks it will be noticeable, but from everyday use, you're not going to notice that. Quad-core CPU, you're going to notice that a little bit, especially in gaming, but overall, not really. And the CPU is called the Tegra 3 CPU. I don't know how, that's what it's called. I don't know how to pronounce it. And RAM, it has 1 gigabyte of it has 1 gigabyte, and that is 1024 megabytes. So the RAM is doubled the amount. So the winner, Nexus 7. Alright, operating system, I know I'm going to get some disagreements here. People aren't going to agree with me, but I don't want to start a whole Android versus iOS battle. That's a different video. I chose iOS because of its ease of use, its security, its privacy, support, apps. So let's just go over what the operating systems on these devices are before I start ranting about why I think iOS is better. So iOS 6 has, the iPad mini has iOS 6.0.1, and the Nexus 7 has Android 4.1 Jelly Bean. But the thing with the Nexus 7 is because it's a Google device, Google actually didn't make the device. I think Asus did, but it's being marketed with the Google brand. It's going to be receiving all of the updates first, right? So I think the Nexus 7 is the only, and then all the Nexus devices are the only devices currently running Jelly Bean, I think. I'm not positive. I'm not really a big Android person, but yeah. So I chose the iPad mini for this because I like iOS better than Android. I'm gonna tell you guys. I told you guys why: the apps, the privacy, ease of use, security, the support, And one thing that really wins me over here is the apps, because a lot of the apps for the Android aren't designed for tablets, and this is what really this right here really doesn't work, because you have a 7-inch screen, a bigger screen, and then you have a app that's designed for a phone, and it just doesn't work. This is with the iPad mini and the iOS in the App Store. You have a whole section for apps. Developers actually have to make, because I'm an Apple developer, I have to make another launch screen, another version of the app for the iPad if I want, otherwise it's not going to be available to them. Well, actually you will, it'll just be modified, but still, most people are they can make more money because it's simply the same code and everything. But since there's a big abundance of that's a big word, there's a lot of tablets out there that each have different screen resolutions. It's impossible for developers to make launch screens or apps optimized for each resolution. So that's why I think it's a good thing that Apple is kind of closed, and they really don't what's it called? They make you pay $100, and they don't really do anything with other companies, but they do. So I'm gonna stop talking about that before I can stop this rant about this. But the camera, the iPad mini crushes the Nexus 7 here with the camera. It's a tablet, so you're really not going to be taking pictures, but you will be taking pictures more often than you would with a 10-inch tablet. But it's still the good thing to have a good camera, or a camera on hand, just in case there's that one once-in-a-lifetime picture. So the iPad mini has a 1.2 megapixel front-facing camera and a 5 megapixel rear-facing camera, autofocus, and shoots in 1080p HD video. The Nexus 7 has a 1.2 megapixel front-facing camera. Yeah, that's all the Nexus 7 has. It doesn't shoot video, no rear-facing camera. So obvious winner here, iPad mini. The design: the iPad mini has a height of 7.9 inches, a width of 5.3 inches, so it is a pretty wide tablet, much wider than the Google Nexus 7 and other tablets, 7-inch tablets out there. So it is it's harder to hold in one hand, but it's manageable. But if you have small hands, it might be difficult. But with people who have relatively regular sized hands, they say it's the perfect size. Weight, it's 0.68 of a pound, so it's under a pound, very light, which is really nice with the tablet. And with tablets, I think you can go really, really light with these, because with phones, there's a certain weight that you want to stop, because if the phone's too light, you're going to forget if it's in your pocket. So I definitely noticed that with my iPhone. If you don't have a case on it, and you go from having like this big, chunky landscape slider texting phone, and it's a big difference. So the depth is 0.28 of an inch, so it's really, really thin, and the height of the Nexus 7 is 7.8 inches, and the width is 4.7 inches. Like I said, I explained all that with the hand size, and stuff like that before. The width is 0.75 pounds, and so it is heavier than the iPad mini, and the depth is 0.141 of a pound, of an inch. So overall, the iPad mini wins here, but I chose the iPad mini here anyway because of the design, not just because of the size, but the design, because the Nexus 7 feels kind of like a toy. It has that plastic back plate, or rubber back plate. It just doesn't feel really good, and it's a fingerprint magnet, which the iPad mini is too, but I think the iPad mini, the design is just so much better. The quality is just so much better. So let's go to price. The iPad mini is a lot more expensive, by $130 more expensive than the Nexus 7. It comes in 16 gigabyte models, It comes in 16, 32, 64 models, and you pretty much just add $100 onto each one to increase the capacity. Both of these devices do not have expandable storage, which stinks, but they do this to get more money. The iPad mini also has cellular, no LTE yet. It should next year. So basically, the basic 16 gigabyte model with Wi-Fi and cellular is $460, and then you just add $100 onto that. So that is relatively expensive, but it's Apple products. So what do you expect? You get that Apple quality and the Apple support and the Apple awesomeness. So the Nexus 7 has only two capacity options: 16 gigabyte, which is $200, which is a really great deal, and $32, which is $250, which is still really a good deal. All right. So yeah, you can actually get the 32 gigabyte model for like half the price of the iPad mini. Not necessarily, but no, it's a little more, but still. But there's for the Wi-Fi and the cellular, there's only one version. You cannot get a 16 gigabyte Wi-Fi and cellular. You can only get the 32, and that's $300, which is a lot cheaper than the iPad mini, obviously. But the bad thing is the Nexus 7 only supports AT&T and something else, I'm not sure. Meanwhile, the iPad mini, I believe, supports GSM. I believe, I'm not positive on that, but I know it supports AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint. So the winner here is the Nexus 7 because it is a lot cheaper. But if you want more carriers for your what is it called again? For your cellular, then it's the iPad mini that wins there because you're really limited with options with the Nexus 7. So everyday use, this is where it gets interesting. Everyday use, I chose the iPad mini for a winner here because I find if the operating system isn't that good, then it's just not going to be a good device. Alright, you can have the best components, but a bad operating system, and then it's just the whole thing is bad. So I chose the iPad mini for a winner here. You're probably wondering, but it has better specs. The Nexus 7 has better specs than the iPad mini. It does, but you don't notice that in day-to-day use. You might notice the whatchamacallit, you will probably notice the extra RAM, but the CPU probably not. Maybe when you're playing games, but other than that, probably not. The only thing you'll probably notice, like I said, is the RAM, because it's a pretty big difference. 512 megabytes, yeah. So but the design, it just works. It just fits in your hand perfectly. The Nexus 7 design is just, yeah, for day-to-day use, the iPad mini, you just want to look something up real quick. It's just slide to unlock, boom, boom, you're done. Alright, with the Nexus 7, you have to do a couple more steps, and I just find the day-to-day use is just much snappier, much fluid to do with the iPad mini. Some people might disagree with me. I feel the iPad mini wins here. So the overall winner, it was really hard to come up with a decision, and my decision isn't even really a decision. I basically just said, I like the iPad mini better, alright? I think the iPad mini is better than the Nexus 7, mainly because of the design and the operating system, alright? But when it comes down to components and the screen, the Nexus 7 wins, okay? And price. The Nexus 7 has a good price, good components, and what was the other thing? A good price, a good screen, and good components. Yeah. So if you're on a budget, $200, you can get an iPod Touch for $200, or you can get a Google Nexus 7 for $200, which pretty much doubles the performance. That's kind of a no-brainer. But if you like iOS, then get an iPad mini. Alright? If you like Android, get a Nexus 7. Alright? it's hard to explain. I like the iPad mini mainly because, like I said, because of the design, the operating system, the battery. Well, I don't know what the battery life on the Nexus 7 is, but the design is what really wins me over. Same thing with the operating system. I do like Android. Like I said, I plan on getting an Android phone. I want to get the Galaxy 4 S3. I have the iPhone 4S. I really like iOS, but I don't think there hasn't been a big change in iOS in a while. So I am I'm thinking about moving over to Android. But enough with the Android, this whole talk. If you're on like I said, if you're on a budget, go with the Google Nexus 7. But if you love Apple products, if you want a good quality design, good good performance, good everyday use, something that will just turn on, you'll know that it's gonna work. You'll know that it will work with the Nexus 7. But if it doesn't work, you can call someone up because Apple has their support. Then go with the iPad mini. All right, there is a big difference between these two products, and there is really they have very similar similarities. Like, they have very similar characteristics. That's what I was looking for. All right, so they're sure the Nexus 7 has better parts in it, but the iPad mini, you don't notice that in everyday use. You're not going to be benchmarking your tablet every day. Half the time people aren't going to be benching their tablet. Only people on YouTube are going to be doing that, so people know what gets a better score. But on day-to-day use, you're not going to notice that type of stuff because of these changes. The only thing I said you'll notice is probably the RAM. Alright, so that's really it for this video, guys. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me. I don't think, for my final decision, I would probably choose an iPad mini. Like I said, iOS wins me over because I like the operating system. The design wins me over. Those are the two things that wins me over, alright? Because like I said, the Nexus 7 kind of feels like a toy because it's not made very well, but the iPad mini is really sturdy, and I have Apple support, and if I drop it, I'm going to get a new one because I have the warranty for a year. I don't know if Google has that, but I know no one beats Apple's support. I'm not going to get into a whole rant about how good Apple support is because I really like Apple support. But that's really it for this video. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but you can write that in the comments. Just write in the comments why, and don't start a whole thing about why iOS is better than Android, though, because I just don't want to get into that, because So, that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Please rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.